Right back at you again. Officer Shapat Dayakin. Dropping something heavy with these cowards out here. Yeah. Coming straight from 125th, 1 West, Harlem, New York. Home of the truth, nigga. Man of war with hair wool, no idols, loving judgments. God of the Bible, the men above me shout, Boom Yasha! And all the warriors be like, Boom Yasha! Kingdoms ours, all the heathens forbidden. The chosen bow down to no one, it was written. The men above me shout, Boom Yasha! And all the warriors be like, Boom Yasha! All day as we discuss how they don't like us. Cabins on streets and corners, all is feeling righteous. Real particular, nobody else there to compare to. Train for war, men of war, and warlike apparel. Prefer our leaders, can't get between us, watch where you stepping. Cause a scene, you gon' see how brotherhood is a weapon. Tough skin protect our wrists, teach girls and kids about it. Call them prophetess, a priest damn near nothing without it. More than rubies, cute and understanding when describing. Virtue loving, no lip from the daughters of Zion. Gold teeth, earrings, chains, and the rings. Precious metals, fabrics, emphatic stones, and everything. Trying to catch the slave, rewind what we rappers slay. Lost in parables, your scripture breakdowns terrible. Yasha Allah, Prince of the power, we are the Jews. God on earth, you can see it by watching all our moves. Man of war with hair wool, no idols, loving judgments. God of the Bible, the men above me shout, Boom Yasha! And all the warriors be like, Boom Yasha! Kingdoms ours, all the heathens forbidden. The chosen bow down to no one, it was written. The men above me shout, Boom Yasha! And all the warriors be like, Boom Yasha! Man of war with hair wool, no idols, loving judgments. God of the Bible, the men above me shout, Boom Yasha! And all the warriors be like, Boom Yasha! Kingdoms ours, all the heathens forbidden. The chosen bow down to no one, it was written. The men above me shout, Boom Yasha! And all the warriors be like, Boom Yasha!
April 20th, come on and join us. We the Lord's 55th annual Passover. We getting it on April 20th. Come on and join us. We rocked it out last year. We back this year again, bigger and better than ever. April 20th, 55th annual Passover, man. Come celebrate the day the Lord freed us from the hands of our enemies, man. You understand? Get your rooms. Get them fast. They going fast. Get them while they go good. Got everything you need to enjoy yourself this year. ISUPK 55th annual, you understand, Passover. And if you call yourself an Israelite or not, if you out there teaching the word of the Lord, you know how important the Lord's Passover is. And ISUPK is hosting it for everybody to come. If you're in a camp, if you're on the street corner, if you're Black, Hispanic, or Native Indian across the planet Earth, join us in Durham, North Carolina. Come to the Lord's Passover.
And also, too, it's an all-access pass this year. So keep that in mind as well. You don't have to think about nothing but getting your hotel room and the other miscellaneous meals you might have. Other than that, we got transportation covered. We got every event covered. We got babysitting covered. The Black Party covered. Everything is covered. Feast of Unleavened Bread. General Muhammad's class, which you know rocks every year. All of that. Free access with the all-access pass. Pay your Passover fee and get free access. Kids are free all the time, all day. Do it with us in ISUPK. April 20th, 55th annual. We getting it on.
About performing at one of our events.
Oh, wow. Where at?
Oh, we're having an enormous event in North Carolina, in Durham, North Carolina in April. It's going to be upwards of about, a lot of people. huge. This is our annual Passover event, and we have people will be coming in from all over the world, from England, from the Caribbean.
Wow, England.
Yeah,
awesome.
from
I would love to be a part.
yeah, we would love this. We would love to have you there performing. We have 9 artists already lined up, 9 rappers already lined up. Bringing you in would just make it much, together. You know what I mean? It would be a great event. So I'm gonna have the brothers get in touch with you and see if we could put that together. A captain in our school, Captain Akkad Abarayam, created what we call the Black Party. We have it every year. We all dressed in black, and we come in and really, yeah, we would love to have you.
Hey, Shalom, Israel. Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah Barakathon. Yahweh Shamar Alathon Bahashim Yahweh Shah. This is ISUPK, started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana, Priest and Officer Howard Mar, ISUPK, Kentucky. And this is Sunday night, so we finna get into what you ain't learning history class, man. And tonight, before we get into it, I want to shout out the Lord's 55th annual Passover, hosted by Commandant General Yohana and the ISUPK. We're going to be getting it on Saturday, April 20th, right down in Durham, North Carolina. We're going to be getting it on for the Lord's 55th annual Passover. But tonight, like I said, what you ain't learning history class, episode 28. And tonight's topic is the effects of Pan-Africanism. All right, the effects of Pan-Africanism. And we finna talk tonight, man. We finna talk about everything from, you see we got Prince Hall on the screen here. We finna talk about everything from the origins of Pan-Africanism, all the pastors that pushed Pan-Africanism, and then we're gonna get into the effects of it that we see out in the world today. You might have heard, recently that the brother Nature Boy just got locked up for life, right? Locked up for life for his sexual immorality. So that's some of the effects of Pan-Africanism. But we finna get into it tonight. So the first slide here. So we got Prince Hall. On the screen. All right, Prince Hall on the screen. Now, Prince Hall, if you're unfamiliar, he is the founder of Prince Hall Masonry. All right, Prince Hall Masonry, which is known as the Black Masonic Lodge. All right, so Prince Hall starts the African Lodge in 1784. All right, Prince Hall starts the African Lodge in 1784. But my one question is, what is African about him? If you take a look, he got the Masonic garb on. He's got the white powder wig. All right. What is African about this person? Again, he starts the African Lodge in 1784. And again, tonight's topic is the effects of Pan-Africanism. But we got to start, before we get to the effects, we got to start out with the origin of Pan-Africanism. So next slide. So again, Prince Hall starts the African Lodge, 1784. But my question is, what is African about him? Well, here's your first source. Prince Hall was born, freeborn in the British West Indies. His father, Thomas Hall, was an Englishman, and his mother, a free colored woman of French extraction. All right. So Prince Hall's father was an Englishman. His mother, a black woman from France. So how do you get an African from this? How do you get an African from an English father and a mother that's a black woman from France? Where do you get African from this? All right. But again, this is the person that started the first African lodge. All right. It says, religiously inclined, he later became a minister of the African Methodist Episcopal Church with a charge in Cambridge. Here's your source. Now, we're finna get into the AME Church here in a minute. All right. The AME Church was the very first black church in the United States. All right. The first black church in the United States. And we're going to talk about where this church came out of. But again, my question is, Prince Hall, again, as you can see, he's wearing the powder wig. He's got the Masonic garb on. Starts the African Lodge in 1784. But again, his father was an Englishman and his mother was a black woman from France. Now, where do you get African from this? Next slide. All right, Thomas Thornton, Thornton Jackson. All right, Thornton Jackson is key. Thornton Jackson is key in the foundation of the African Lodge. All right, here's the image of Thornton Jackson. All right, here's the image of Thornton Jackson. All right, Thornton Jackson, the most prescient sovereign grand commander of the southern jurisdiction of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite. All right, so Thornton Jackson, his name is actually Thornton Andrew Jackson. All right, sovereign grand commander of the southern jurisdiction of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite Masons. Here's your source. Now, Thornton Jackson rolled with Albert Pike. Now, you might be asking, how is somebody that's pushing for an African lodge, what would he be doing rolling with Albert Pike? Now, if you're not familiar, Albert Pike was a 33rd degree Master Mason and a Klan member. All right, Albert Pike was a 33rd degree Master Mason and a Klan member. Next slide. All right, Thornton Jackson was closely associated with Albert Pike, one of the best authorities on Scottish Rite Masonry who ever lived. Notwithstanding, Brother Albert Pike is reported to have made the statement, "I took my obligation to white men and not to Negroes." He was a good friend to Thornton Jackson and aided him in carrying the work of Scottish Rite Masonry. So, again, Albert Pike, 33rd degree Master Mason and a Klansman. All right, he was the one that put Thornton Jackson on to Scottish Rite Freemasonry. All right, again, Albert Pike was a 33rd degree Master Mason and a Klansman, and he was the one that put Thornton Jackson on to Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Now, again, what does this have to do? What does this have to do with the African Lodge? What does this have to do with the African Lodge and Prince Hall? All right, let's walk it down. All right, again, Albert Pike, 33rd degree Master Mason and a Klansman. All right, Albert Pike absolutely was a Klansman. Here's your source. All right, Traveler's Aid is heartily endorsed. Virginia Klansmen request general support of this very worthy movement. Albert Pike, Klan, number 32, realm of Virginia. All right, this is your proof that Albert Pike was a Klansman. Now, what is this brother here, Thornton Jackson, doing being friends with a Klansman? And what does he have to do with Prince Hall Masonry and this African Lodge? Well, here we go. All right, the abolitionists, many of whom were Quakers, keep that name in mind, Abolitionists, many of whom were Quakers, felt that freed blacks would be better able to attain their freedom in Africa than in the United States. So we have these Quaker organizations, all right, that believe that black people in America wouldn't get a fair shake. So they'd be better off in Africa. They also viewed the repatriation to Africa as a means to spreading Christianity. Look, this Back to Africa movement is missionary work. All right, this Back to Africa movement, Salakia, this Pan-African movement, this Back to the Motherland movement is nothing but missionary work of the Christian church, and it's colonization. It's nothing but missionary work of the Christian church, and it's colonization. Next slide. All right, origins of Cornell University. You heard of Cornell University, right? Now, Cornell is the origin of the black fraternity Alpha Phi Alpha. All right. It says here, Ezra Cornell, however, shared whites' feelings. Raised as a Quaker, he had been excommunicated when he married a non-Quaker. Now, this is important because the origin of Cornell University, which is the origin of Alpha Phi Alpha, a black fraternity, was a Quaker. Now, what did we just say about the Quakers? The Quakers believed that blacks would never get a fair shake here in America and that they should move to Africa. All right, this is where the whole Back to Africa movement started, by a group of Quakers, and it's also the origin of Cornell University. And again, Cornell is where Alpha Phi Alpha comes from. All right, Cornell University is where Alpha Phi Alpha comes from. All right, Alpha Phi Alpha founded in 1906 at Cornell. And we see this African, we see this, what is this, King Tut? We see King Tut is the logo of Alpha Phi Alpha. Again, we have a Quaker organization pushing this Back to Africa movement. And now we have the first black fraternity comes out of a Quaker school, and again, pushing this Pan-African ideology. Again, we see King Tut on the front. All right, it says groups like African American fraternities and sororities, known as Black Greek letter organizations, Prince Hall Freemasonry. Okay, all of this is tied with Prince Hall Freemasonry. And again, Prince Hall started the first African lodge, even though he had an English father and a mother who was from France. So all of these Black Greek letter organizations, like Alpha Phi Alpha, all come out of Prince Hall Freemasonry. And various iterations of the Black church. We finna get into the Black church in a minute. All right, one hand, to most mainstream eyes, these groups come into focus through a particularly narrow lens. They exist as leftovers of a bygone age that self-segregate and thereby perpetuate racial antagonism. They are self-serving and elitists that represent the worst of both the talented 10th and the black bourgeoisie. All right, so all of this comes out of the so-called talented 10th and the black bourgeoisie. We're talking about men like Booker T. Washington, Thurgood Marshall, W.E.B. Du Bois, all of whom were members of either Freemasonry or these Black Greek letter organizations. Next slide. All right, here's an image of Alpha Phi Alpha. Again, started in 1906. All right, let's walk this down. We have Martin Luther King pledging Alpha Phi Alpha. And we know how Martin Luther King was one of the biggest traitors to the black community. All right, Black founding fathers. We're finna get into the church here in a minute. We said Black Freemasonry, Black Greek letter organizations, and the Black church. All right, Black founding fathers, Richard Allen and Absalom Jones. If you never heard this before, there were actually Black founding fathers of America. All right. How can you be a founding father and not be a goddamn colonizer? I'll ask it again. How can you be a founding father of America and not be a goddamn colonizer? All right. Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, founding fathers of the United States. America's Black Founding Fathers, Freemasons, founders of the Free African Society, and the AME Church, and the fathers of Pan-Africanism. Like I said, all of these things are tied together with the origin of Pan-Africanism. You have Prince Hall Masonry, you have Black Greek letter organizations, and you have the Black Church. All right, again, Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, America's Black Founding Fathers, Freemasons, founders of the Free African Society, and the AME Church. Next slide. All right, the Free African Society. Established in 1787 under the leadership of Richard Allen and Absalom Jones, this organization fostered identity, leadership, and unity among Blacks and became the forerunner for the first African-American churches in this city. All right, the Free African Society, 1787. Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, this organization fostered identity. All right, this was the first time that we had a group of so-called Black leaders that wanted to push an identity on the public. But again, just like with Prince Hall, if you look at these men, what is African about them? What's African about them? We just found out that Prince Hall had an English father and a French mother. What is particularly African about these people? Where's the bones through the nose? Where's the plates in the lips? Where's the stretched earlobes? All right. I bet these men wear deodorant. What is truly African about these people? All right. But again, we read that these organizations were the ones that pushed for repatriation to Africa because you had white Quakers that didn't believe that Black people could get a fair shake in this country and would be better off somewhere else. All right. Let's talk about this. Let's get into it. Let's walk. All right, so the Free African Society grew into the AME Church in 1816. All right, the AME Church, or the African Methodist Episcopal, grew out of the Free African Society. And then from that, we have the Ebenezer AME Church. They split in the 1860s and moved down to Georgia. All right, the AME Church split. The Ebenezer AME Church in the 1860s moved down to Georgia. And the Ebenezer Baptist Church comes from the Ebenezer AME. Split in 1886, and Adam Daniel Williams became pastor in 1894. And Adam Daniel Williams was the maternal grandfather of Martin Luther King Jr. Again, all of this is connected. We just seen an image of Martin Luther King pledging Alpha Phi Alpha. And it turns out his grandfather, his maternal grandfather, Slovakia. We just found out his maternal grandfather was pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church. And again, the Ebenezer Baptist Church grew out of the AME Church, which again was only there to push an African identity on the people. All right, next slide. All right, James Forten, another one of America's Black Founding Fathers. Again, what is African about these people? All right, January 15, 1817, James Forten, Richard Allen, and Absalom Jones. All right, these men right here, James Forten. It goes Richard Allen, Absalom Jones. They got together with James Forten. And they called a meeting to discuss the American Colonization Society in front of a 3,000-member congregation to promote moving to Africa. All right? To promote moving to Africa. And not a single member of the church wanted to go. I wonder why. But again, these three men, which were also three of America's Black Founding Fathers, were pushing this organization called the American Colonization Society to promote moving people to Africa. And again, all this comes from Quakers that didn't believe that we could get a fair shake in America and wanted us all out of here on the first thing smoking. All right, here's your source. All right, Robert Finley. All right, we talked about the American Colonization Society. This devil right here was the founder of the American Colonization Society, and he was the first person with the idea to move black people to Liberia. All right, this is the whole reason you have a colony. You had a colony of black Americans in Liberia. It's from this devil right here, Robert Finley. All right, the American Colonization Society was established to address the prevailing view that free people of color could not integrate into U.S. society. White Americans believed that blacks were inferior and therefore should be relocated. So again, this was the idea of white people, Salakia. This was the idea of our oppressor to move us to Africa. All right, to set up a colonization in Liberia and move us to Africa. This all comes from white Quaker organizations and white Scottish Rite Freemasons like Albert Pike, who were also Klansmen. All right, it all comes from these groups of people to move us out of here on the first thing smoking, and we get this American Colonization Society, who didn't believe that we could get a fair shake here, believed that we were inferior, and therefore should be relocated. Source: American Colonization Society, 200 years of the colonizing trick. All right, in 1822, the American Colonization Society began to send free people of color to the Pepper Coast to establish a colony. The ACS assisted in the migration of more than 13,000 people of color from the United States to Liberia. Source: the African American Mosaic. So all of this is a design to get us out of here. All right, all of this is a design to get us out of here. All right. Quote from historian Mark Leibson: the colonization trick proved to be a giant failure. Source: what so proudly we hail. The failure was they couldn't get enough people to go. They could not get enough people to want to move to that fly-infested place we call Africa. Next source: by 1833, the society had transported 2,769 people out of the United States, while the increase of the black population in the U.S. during those same years was about 500,000. So they were only able to transport 3,000 people out of here, but the black population grew by 500,000 that same year. That's why colonization proved to be a failure, because not enough of us wanted to go to that stinking ass continent. All right, here's your source. All right, Marcus Garvey. All right, Marcus Garvey, white supremacist. All right, Garvey wearing the uniform of the Right Eminent Grand Commander. That means that Marcus Garvey was a Freemason. All right, remember, all of this comes out of Freemasonry, Black Greek letter organizations, and the church. This whole back to Africa shit comes from Freemasonry, Black Greek letter organizations, and the church. All right, Marcus Garvey, white supremacist. All right, you might be asking, how was Marcus Garvey a white supremacist? Well, he's in the picture with Walter Plecker. He's in the picture with Walter Plecker. Now, who is Walter Plecker? All right, Walter Ashby Plecker was an American physician and public health advocate who was the first registrar of Virginia's Bureau of Vital Statistics, serving from 1912 to 1946. Plecker directed registrars around the state to change birth certificates to cross out Indian and write in color. To cross out Indian and write in color. Sidebar: the first president of Liberia was an American Indian. All right, the first president of Liberia was an American Indian out of the Tuscarora tribe. All right, sidebar. All right, here's a quote from Charles Darwin. It says, at some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the world the savage races. All right, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the world the savage races. Here's a similar quote from Marcus Garvey. The fact that the modern Negro is a lazy, good-for-nothing slumberer. This is my conviction, arrived at by close and careful study and experience. And if something is not done for him, he will die as other unfit races have. All right. Why is Marcus Garvey quoting? Why is Marcus Garvey quoting Charles Darwin? Again, Charles Darwin said, in The Descent of Man, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the world the savage races. Marcus Garvey, if something is not done for him, he will die as other unfit races have. Look, Marcus Garvey believed that something needs to be done for Blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians. Marcus Garvey believed that something needed to be done for the Lord's chosen people. And if not, he says the modern Negro is a lazy, good-for-nothing slumberer, and he will die as other unfit races have. This is the Pan-African King. This is a quote from Marcus Garvey. Look it up. Look it up. This is y'all's Pan-African King. This is y'all's Pan-African King that called you a lazy, good-for-nothing slumberer and will die if something isn't done for you. Next slide. Here's your Marcus Garvey. Here's y'all's Pan-African King. Here's y'all's Pan-African King. All right. Prominent Black activist Marcus Garvey once said, I regard the Klan, the Anglo-Saxon clubs, and white American societies, as far as the Negro is concerned, a better friend to the race than other groups of hypocritical whites put together. Marcus Garvey said, I regard the Klan as a better friend to the race. Now, didn't we say earlier that a Klansman named Albert Pike was a prominent person in pushing Scottish Rite Freemasonry amongst the African Lodge? Didn't we prove that the Klan was using people like Albert Pike to push Scottish Rite Freemasonry in the so-called African Lodge? Again, I said all of this is connected. All of this is connected to the origin of Pan-Africanism. And that's why you have people like Marcus Garvey pushing us back to African movement and saying that the Klan is a good friend to the Black race. Next slide. All right, Edward Wilmot Blyden, the father of Pan-Africanism. Let's get into it. Edward Wilmot Blyden, the father of Pan-Africanism. All right, Blyden was ordained minister that worked with the American Colonization Society. Remember I said that Pan-Africanism was nothing but missionary work, nothing but Quaker missionary work and colonization? All right, the father of Pan-Africanism was a Christian minister that worked with the American Colonization Society. Remember, the American Colonization Society said that Black people were inferior and needed to be transported out of here. Well, why would the father of Pan-Africanism work with these people? Why would the father of Pan-Africanism work with people that believe we were inferior? Again, like I said, the colonization to Africa was nothing but missionary work. And that's why the father of Pan-Africanism has to be a Christian minister. Again, all of this is missionary work. All right, Blyden immigrated to Liberia. There's that country again. In 1850, paid for by the American Colonization Society. All right, people that believed that we were inferior paid for this man's trip to Africa. And this is the father of Pan-Africanism. Next slide. All right, Reverend Alexander Crummell. All right, again, all of these people are pastors, Masons, come from Black Greek letter organizations, and somewhere in the past have a white clan daddy like Albert Pike. Next slide. Crummell developed his concepts of Pan-Africanism at Cambridge University. He didn't start his ideas of Pan-Africanism over there in Africa. He started his ideas of Pan-Africanism at Cambridge University. 1853, Crummell moved to Liberia. Okay, there goes that country of Liberia again, where he worked to convert Africans to Christianity. Not some African religion, not King Tut and them, not Egyptology. All right. Crummell developed his concepts of Pan-Africanism at Cambridge University. 1853, he moved to Liberia to convert Africans to Christianity. Again, Pan-Africanism is nothing but missionary work. All right, it's nothing but a trick of the colonizer. Next slide. All right, Henry Sylvester Williams. Now look at this cat here, man. Look at this cat right here with the powdered wig, man. Look at this cat right here. What's African about him? Looks very English to me with the powdered wig on. You gonna tell me this is Afrocentric? Next slide. All right, Williams coined the term Pan-Africanism. He moved to England in 1897 to form the African Association. He didn't move to Africa. He moved to England in 1897 to form the African Association. He worked as a lecturer for the Church of England Temperance Society, where he met and married a white woman named Agnes Powell, daughter of Freemason Captain Francis Powell. Again, all of this goes back to Freemasonry. All right. And Freemasonry got pushed into the African Lodge by a Klansman named Albert Pike. All right, let's drop that. Let's go into the Bible real quick. Let's go into the Bible. Let's go into the Bible right quick. All right, it says the book of Jeremiah, chapter 23, verse 1. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 23, verse 1. And it reads, "Woe be unto the pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, saith the Lord." So the Bible says, woe be unto the pastors. Now, woe is an older English word that means death and destruction. So the Bible is calling for destruction of these pastors, calling for the death and destruction of these pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, saith the Lord. Pastors like this, like Henry Sylvester Williams, that moved to England and married a white woman who was the daughter of a Freemason captain. Like Reverend Alexander Crummell, who only moved to Liberia to convert Africans to Christianity. And the father of Pan-Africanism, Edward Wilmot Blyden, Presbyterian minister that worked with the American Colonization Society. And again, the American Colonization Society was the organization that opened up the country of Liberia. All right, next slide. All right, Sigma Pi Phi. All right, Sigma Pi Phi, we're talking about the Black Boule. We're talking about the Black Boule. We're talking about the elites, right? We're talking about the talented 10th in the Black community, the Black Boule, Sigma Pi Phi, also known as the Black Skull and Bones. These were the first non-collegiate Black fraternity. All right. Sigma Pi Phi started in 1904. Again, you got the Sphinx. All right, we've got more so-called African imagery. And this is the Afrocentric movement. This is the Afrocentric movement. All right, the Grand Boule, Sigma Pi Phi, the talented 10th, the elite Black leaders of the community. This is the Afrocentric movement. This is the Pan-African movement. All right, Asa Hilliard, Jacob Carruthers. I don't have the time to go into who these men are and their influence on Pan-Africanism, but both of these men are members of Sigma Pi Phi. All right, next slide. Melville Herskowitz. All right, Melville Herskowitz. Let's talk about him for a minute. Melville Herskowitz, president of the African Studies Association. All right, Melville Herskowitz, president of the African Studies Association. All right, the father of African Studies. All right, this was the man that wrote a book called Myth of the Negro Past. This is the man that taught that all of the idiosyncrasies of the Black community come from come from African culture. All right, which is nonsense. All right, what is African about the so-called African American? Definitely not the food. All right, definitely not the culture. All right, what is African about the so-called African American's culture here? All right, but this is the man that wrote in a book called Myth of the Negro Past that the black communities, the black communities' idiosyncrasies all come from Africa. All right, the culture of Black Americans is African. This is what this man said. All right, next slide. All right, this day in Jewish history, 1963, the white Jewish father of African studies dies. All right, this is your white Jewish father of Pan-Africanism. All right, this is your white Jewish father of Pan-Africanism. And he was one of the first, I think he was the first president of the African Studies Association, 1958. All right, let's talk about this African Studies Association. All right, at the end of the 1960s, the African Studies Association, with over 1,500 members, plus some 300 affiliated, was a veritable academic empire presiding over one of the fastest growing intellectual fields. All right, in 1968, a Black caucus was formed within the ASA, led by John Henry Clark. All right, so we have John Henry Clark. All right, another giant in Pan-Africanism. Again, if you're not familiar, I don't have time to go into him, but look up Asa Hilliard, look up Jacob Carruthers, look up John Henry Clark on your own time and see what they contributed to Pan-Africanism. All right, so again, John Henry Clark joined the African Studies Association. Again, Melville Herskovitz was the president in 1958. All right, so 1968, John Henry Clark formed the Black Caucus in the ASA. Now, the next president of the African Studies Association was L. Gray Cohen, was president in 1970. Another Jewish man. Let's read about him. All right, CIA-related organization, African American Institute, African Society of African Culture. Here's your L. Gray Cohen. All right, Director, SIA African Institute. All right, L. Gray Cohen, president of the African Studies Association, was CIA related. All right, the president of the African Studies Association, which John Henry Clark was a part of, was a CIA affiliate. All right, this is a bar right here. Where's the bomb drop on this? Where's the bomb drop on this? John Henry Clark was associated with the African Studies Association, and the president in 1970 was CIA related. All right, this is Pan-Africanism. This is Pan-Africanism. Next slide. Leonard Jeffries. All Leonard Jeffries. All right, another giant in the Afrocentric community, Leonard Jeffries. All right, now Leonard Jeffries became the oral history director of the Carnegie-funded Kente Library for Black genealogical research in Washington, D.C. On your own time, look and see how wicked this man Carnegie was. All right, go look and see how Carnegie let a whole black town be destroyed because they didn't want to fund the bill to make sure that that levees in a certain town were strong enough to hold the water. All right, see how Carnegie let an entire black city die. All right, but Jeffries works as the oral history director of the Carnegie-funded Kente Library for Black genealogical research. He also consulted on Alex Haley's book Roots in 1977 and the television miniseries that followed. All right. Leonard Jeffries worked with Alex Haley on the book Roots. Let's talk about Roots. Alex Haley, Freemason and plagiarist. All right. Again, we're going back to Freemasons, Black Greek letter organizations, and the church. All right, Alex Haley, 1977. Alex Haley was accused of plagiarism in 2 separate lawsuits by Harold Corlander and Margaret Alexander. Corlander claimed that Roots was copied from his fictional novel, The African, in 1967. All right. If Roots was plagiarized by a fictional book, what does that make Roots? If Roots was copied from a fictional novel, what does that make Roots? All right, Walter claimed Haley had plagiarized from her Civil War era novel, Jubilee. Corlander's suit was settled out of court for $650,000, the equivalent of $2.9 million today, and an acknowledgement from Haley that certain passages from Roots were copied from The African. All right, so Alex Haley is a plagiarist. And he worked with Leonard Jeffries, again, oral history director of the Carnegie-funded Kente Library for Black Genealogical Research in Washington, D.C. He consulted on Alex Haley's Roots in 1977. And that was the same year that Haley was accused of plagiarism. Well, let's hear about Leonard Jeffries real quick. Let's hear about Leonard Jeffries. Let's hear about Leonard Jeffries, a giant in Pan-Africanism. Let's hear about Leonard Jeffries.
For real? She said, yes, we are from the Powhatan Indian Nation. For real? She said, yes, we are from the Powhatan Indian Nation. For real? She said, yes, we are from the Powhatan Indian Nation. For real? She said, yes, we are from the Powhatan Indian Nation.
From the Powhatan Indian Nation, a giant in Pan-Africanism, worked as oral history director for the Kente Library for Black Genealogical Research, consulted with Alex Haley's Roots that we see was plagiarized, and Leonard Jeffries was an Indian. All right. Leonard Jeffries gave up what his family told him to become a Pan-African. His family told him he was Indian. He grew up, all right, went to school, got indoctrinated, became a Pan-African, and consulted Alex Haley on his plagiarized book called Roots. All right, next slide. Erykah Badu. Oh, Erykah Badu. All right, this is the effects of Pan-Africanism. All right, this is the effects of Pan-Africanism. You see Erykah Badu. All right, Erykah Badu was born in Dallas, Texas. She wasn't born in Africa. All right, Erykah Badu was born in Dallas, Texas. You see she's wearing the ankh. All right, in her African symbols. All right, you see her wearing the ankh. All right, this is Erykah Badu's grandfather. Paternal grandfather, William J. Wright. All right, born in 1920. All right, and he's from Love County, Oklahoma. All right, now Love County, Oklahoma is Indian territory. All right, Love County, established in 1907. Love County was originally known as Recording District Number 26, Pickens County, Chickasaw Nation, Indian Territory. All right, located on the southern part of Oklahoma, bordered on the south by the Texas and the Red River, on the north by Carter County, and on the east by Marshall County. All right, Salakia. So Erykah Badu, even though she's wearing the ankh, represent Pan-Africanism, her paternal grandfather grew up in Indian territory. Now, how does this happen? Right? How do you grow up, leave what your family told you were, become indoctrinated, and become a Pan-African? Again, her paternal grandfather grew up in Indian territory in Oklahoma. All right, this is Erykah Badu's daughter, Puma. This is DOC's daughter. All right, if you're not familiar with DOC, DOC is a legend down in Dallas, and he was one of the founding members of NWA. Now, if you look on his shirt, it says she's got the logo of the Choctaw Indian Nation right there on her shirt. Now, again, she's got the logo of the Choctaw Indian Nation right there on her shirt. Her grandfather, her paternal grandfather, grew up in Indian Territory in Oklahoma, but somehow she becomes a Pan-African. All right, all of this is, again, I said it was missionary work. It was missionary work and colonization. And the main purpose of this was to move us out of here into places like Liberia and Sierra Leone. But it looks like she just went spiritually. All right, so now we have this Erykah Badu, the perfect day to cheat with a soft dude. Men gonna be watching football. All right, this is the effects of Pan-Africanism. And this is what, have y'all seen Erykah? Have y'all seen Erykah lately? All right, she looks completely bugged out of her damn mind. Erykah Badu looks completely bugged out of her goddamn mind. How do we go from this? How she looks here? Is this what Pan-Africanism does to you? Now her daughter better watch out. Her daughter better watch out. Now I see she's cool now. All right, she's repping her Choctaw lineage. But if she don't watch out, she's gonna end up like this. All right, this is what Pan-Africanism does to you. It bugs you the fuck out. All right, next slide. All right, let's drop that and go back to the Bible. Let's drop that and go back to the Bible. All right, the book of Exodus, chapter 11, verse 7. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that ye may know how the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. All right, there's a difference between Egyptians, which are Africans, and Israelites, which are Blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians. There is a difference between Blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians and Africans. All right, there is a difference between us and Africans. But again, this whole class was about the effects of Pan-Africanism. All right, next slide. Everybody in the so-called conscious community, everybody in this Pan-African, Afrocentric community always talks about this. All right, this is from the New York Times, 23andMe. 23andMe. All right, breached targeted Jewish and Chinese customers lawsuit said. The class action suit said the genetic testing company failed to notify customers whose personal information was compiled into curated lists that was sold on the dark web. New York Times, these people are selling your information on the dark web. You can go and get a 23andMe test if you want to. You can go and get a 23andMe test if you want to. Get a 23andMe test if you want to. Find out your so-called African heritage. And these people are selling your information on the dark web. Next slide. Ancestry testing companies like Ancestry DNA and 23andMe may be characterized as recreational. As FDA halts 23andMe sales, scientists caution personal genetic screenings are entertainment genetics. It's not real. All of these tests that you're doing to find your so-called African heritage, it's not real. FDA halts 23andMe sales. Scientists caution personal genetic screenings are entertainment genetics. Customers should approach personal genetic tests with healthy skepticism, sense of fun. It is not real. It's not real, people. All right. I know you want to be African so bad because Africans so-called come from greatness. King Tut never had roaches in his house. I understand that you want to be from somebody great, but what you got to understand is blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians, we are a descendant of the greatest people to ever walk the face of this earth, the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Our culture's in the Bible. Our culture's not in the 42 negative confessions of Ma'at. FDA halts 23andMe sales. Scientists caution personal genetic screenings are entertainment genetics. All right. Now let's get into the very end of this thing here. Let's get into the end of it. Again, this is the effects of Pan-Africanism. Malachi Z. York, if you're not familiar, had a compound down in Georgia. All right, pushing Pan-Africanism. As you can see, he's got not only does he have the Masonic fairs or the Shriners fairs on his followers behind him, but he's also dressed up like the Egyptian god Osiris. Now we just read that there's a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. But he wants to be made up like an Egyptian god. Again, he had that compound down in Georgia, pushing Pan-Africanism with the pyramids and the temples. And there's how he looked here. All right, December 27th, 2002. All right, Dr. York, trial results in multiple count conviction of leader in a pseudo-religious sect. All right, early in 2004, York was convicted in federal court by a jury of multiple RICO, child molestation, and federal reporting charges. He was sentenced to 135 years in prison. This is the effects of Pan-Africanism. All right, he was sentenced to 135 years in prison. A man that wanted to be made up like the god Osiris. All right, 2004, York was convicted in federal court by a jury of multiple RICO, child molestation, and financial reporting charges, sentenced to 135 years in prison. And one of his best students, Brother Polite, if you've been watching for a while, y'all know that Captain Tazariak, Captain of 13,000, Captain Tazariak of ISUPK, the Commander General Yohana, battled this cat back in the day, about 10 years ago, and put this man in a suitcase. But everybody was so impressed by Polite, right? His vocabulary. He's got so much knowledge. He's got so much overstanding. Right? He's got the Egyptian eye makeup on, the eye of Horus or the eye of Ra. He has so much knowledge, so much wisdom, spoke so many languages, wrote so many books, has so much overstanding. But social media influencer arrested. All right, September 6, 2023, motivational speaker, an African-American activist known as Brother Polite, has pled guilty to child crimes and has received 7 years in prison and 10 years of probation. All right, this is the effects of Pan-Africanism. Next slide. This has been recent news here. All right, Nature Boy used to call himself 3 God. I remember I heard this cat say he hasn't become God in the flesh yet because he hasn't uploaded yet. All right, this is the effects of Pan-Africanism. All right, arrested, accused cult leader, Nature Boy found guilty on all counts, including rape. Accused cult leader, Nature Boy sentenced to life in prison without parole. All right, this Pan-African, this sexual deviant was just sentenced to life without parole. All right, this is the effects of Pan-Africanism. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and end the class. Before we do that, I want to invite everybody to check out ICPK Kentucky weekly content. Monday history class taught by Officer of 1,000, Ayasiyat Hayam. Tuesday brotherhood class taught by Officer of 1,000, I'm a Wangabar. Wednesday law class 7 to 9, right in the main library downtown Louisville, Kentucky. Wednesday night, every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., the baddest podcast around, Crowd Spell Not Podcast, hosted by Officers of 1,000, I'm a Wangabar, and Ayasiyat Payam. And every other Sunday, what you ain't learning history class. So with that, shalom. Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah Barakathum. Yahweh Shemar Latham by Hashem, Yahweh Shah. Class dismissed.